Welcome back to Dirt Nap Ballistics. Today we're down in South Texas, deep South Texas, south enough that my phone told me I was in Mexico, at Perla Ranch here with Blair and Gary Schwartz, who are kind enough to have me now for the weekend. So just kind of starting off, can y'all tell me about La Perla, how long y'all have had the place, a little bit of history about it, what makes it special?
For sure. Well, the contract's over there framed on the wall. It's handwritten on a piece of paper when I got this thing under contract. Do you remember the date?
2004.
2004, so 21 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I had invested. I bought and sold 52 ranches in my career, starting in 1989. I love taking a piece of property and putting the years of experience that I've had, putting it into making the habitat better for all species. I never had fish opportunity till here. But of course, growing monster bucks is what put us on the map, starting with the animal heart attack, which became a national celebrity. Realtree Outdoors had t-shirts printed with him on it, so I don't know how many they sold. I still have one of those old t-shirts.
Yeah.
Heart attack, you know, the animal that started, I guess, a bit of a legacy. And I guess that's kind of what I've done ever since with properties. I like to put my hands in the dirt and my mind into the dirt and enhance it for the good of the wildlife species. And that's what sets La Perla apart. It's not the ranch we bought.
No.
It's not the same ranch. And I've learned the importance of opening up the property for two purposes. Number one, it increases, not opening it up to the point of these huge, wide, two-dimensional rectangular strips of clearing and then a rectangular strip of brush. And that's good for the wildlife, but not for the human eye. Because it's just two stark contrasts, and you see from one end of your ranch to the other. So what I've done is to work around a crazy quilt of habitat management. You know, on the quilts, every I don't know what you call them, but every square is not the same. They're all different. And so managing this habitat through fire, through roller chopper, through root plow, through controlled grazing, you know. I saw that my grass, when I bought the place, it didn't have hardly any grass on it.
He'd been overgrazed with cattle.
The fawn crop was terrible as a result, because grass cover is necessary for the fawn crop to have a defense against predation.
Yeah. They might not smell, but if you can see them.
That's right. That's right. They don't smell early on in their birth, but you can see them and eat them if there's no grass.
Yep.
But if there's grass, you know, we went from the worst fawn crop to consistently the best fawn crops that our biologist finds. And that's been done with spreading of the grass that's happened through proper controlled grazing. We didn't have any cattle for the longest time. And finally it took off, and about the same time that we quit getting our huge rains for our lakes. And I can't control how much it rains, but I can control to a degree that I'm willing to the runoff when that rain does happen.
Yep.
And I noticed that 1.5 to 2 inch rains used to put a fair amount of water into La Perla Lake, but not anymore. And I realized it was the benefit of years of taking cattle off the ranch and not grazing that grass. Of course, the deer don't graze it. But it became a problem in terms of allowing enough runoff for our lakes. And so I had a meeting with Blair and Keno and Armando and Vicente, my boys that work here, and of course the management team. And I wanted to bring cows, and they begged me not to, every one of them. They said, no, please don't bring cows. Well, what am I gonna do? I gotta control my grass. How are we gonna control them? The way you control them is with grass. And I've always been a forward thinker, thinking outside the box, which is an overused term, but on the other hand, I can't think of a better term to explain what I've done my whole career. And everything I've done, be it ranching oral surgery. And they said, let's do it with exotics. And I said, we're not going to be able to get enough mouths on the ground. They said, yes, we will. You're just going to have to buy enough of them. We're going to have some reproduction. And by golly, it's happened.
Yep.
And now they've become a good supplemental income source for us. And so,
Yeah, they've been great.
Right.
They really have taken off.
And exotic wise, I know this weekend I saw Bleesbuck. We saw. I didn't see the zebra, but I know some other people saw the zebra. Why can't I think of it? Wildebeest. There we go.
Yep.
Axis. Nilgai.
Yep.
Anything else?
Black buck.
Black. Oh yeah, you saw a black buck.
You said Axis. I think that's it, isn't it?
I think so.
And all these.
Did you say Gibbs buck?
I did not.
Yeah, Gibbs buck.
Yep. And all these are huntable out here.
Yeah, they will be. You know, we started with a herd. I guess this year it'll be 2 years since we've had them. And, you know, you start with a smaller herd. And, for example, the blessed buck are reproducing, but they're reproducing slower than the wildebeest, which have just exploded. I think we went from 16 to over 40 in a year and a half.
Yeah, and we captured some of those today.
We captured some of those today.
I love the wildebeest. I think they're my favorite.
They're awesome.
You know, they're.
It's the best eating animal out here, too.
It's the best chicken fried steak I ever put
It's
in my
delicious.
mouth. Tender and
Yeah.
mild, not gamey,
Yeah.
but mainly tender. Oh my gosh.
I was gonna say last night that was
That was no guy.
no guy.
We ate no guy for dinner last night.
Was it this morning's breakfast sausage that was?
It was some wildebeest, yep.
There we go. So
That was pretty good breakfast sausage. I
Yeah.
didn't
It was really
realize that. In fact, I was wondering where it came
And
from.
wildebeest. We had Wes had a processor in Tomball do it.
Man, I liked it. It had a bite to it.
Yeah.
yeah, a little spicy.
Yeah, that was really good.
But yeah, they've all done well. So we eventually, you know, maybe not the zebras. We'll see how they reproduce, but eventually everything will be huntable. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
We think the only thing we haven't killed that we haven't hunted is blessed buck and the zebras. I think everything else has been already been shot to some extent.
I love those blessed buck. It's gonna hurt me to eventually.
They're really neat
They're
animals.
so beautiful.
They really are.
One of the things not talked about enough is the real challenge a rancher has to make a profit on his ranch, especially if he buys that ranch through other sources of revenue. Say he's a businessman, he's got a company, or say he's like me, he's a doctor or a dentist or an oral surgeon, and so he funds his operation and begins trying to make it profitable. And no one, I don't think, has tried harder than I have. As mentioned earlier, what we generate in total dollars is over $500 an acre, and which is unheard of. And yet I had to sit through a tax case, went to tax court to fight a ruling that I was a hobby and not a real business. I started a TV show, Bucks of Tecumseh.
Yep.
I co-hosted it for years. We sold seed, we sell deer, we sell exotics, tried cattle,
trips.
lost money on cattle, and I won't go back to that. But the point is that I'm not a real business. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? My problem is I got a doctorate degree beside my name, which I think influences tax courts to look at it, and well, it must be a hobby, and he must be just doing it for himself. I've killed one trophy buck the whole time I've been here.
You've killed one deer on this ranch since 2004.
20, yeah,
21 years.
yeah,
And me too. I've only ever killed one trophy here.
Yeah, and Oliver. Oliver been on the show once.
But so anyway, the point. I mean, it's been fun, but trying to make a successful, profitable business in South Texas is hard.
Yeah.
With the hunting,
Very hard.
it's very hard. But it's it's been great.
But you know what? Since tax court, I've been profitable now 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
2 years in a row, been profitable.
Yeah.
In the face of this horrible drought we've been through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been rough.
You know. Anyway.
But you're working to build. You're working to beat state record for bass, but I don't know what the ranch record is for whitetail. But you have a deer out there running around that's probably closer to 300 inches than he is to 200 inches.
Yeah.
You know, how do we get to that point? Like, were there deer just monsters when you got here? Is it management? Can you kind of talk through how you've grown the ranch to where it is today, where you're producing a 250 plus inch deer?
But first, before y'all go on, like when I hear about a 300-inch deer, I don't even want to see a picture of it, because it's going to be a freak that I have no interest in. I mean, these big non-typicals that accumulate all those
300
points.
point deer.
You know, we brought in some outside genetics for a few years to get our. I transferred deer from Tecomate, where Heart Attack was. Got to be the best genetics there are. Next to the Robert East Ranch, flow through genetics there. Never hunted across the fence. God bless his soul. But that's what started it. We brought that here, and I've always used. I did it on the Sandermon lease that I leased. I did it on my own Tecomate that I owned. I did it on the Tecomate that I owned with partners. Altogether over 10,000 acres of country. I've always believed in two things. Number one, I have no interest in a true year-round breeding program for whitetail deer. I don't want to handle the fawns. Mm-hmm. I don't want tame animals.
Yes.
And I'm not going to criticize people that want to do it. I mean, it's a free country. I mean, as long as it's done in a way that doesn't spread chronic wasting disease, which the state is doing a great job now running a herd over those guys, making sure everything is clean. But I have no interest in that. But I do have an interest in a tasteful way of improving my genetics on my own ranch faster than I can by shooting cull bucks at younger ages than mature bucks. And we've always done that. But there's never been a controlled study able to show that makes a hoot of difference. But what does make a hoot of difference is when you can change the math. You know, research showed that a wild whitetail doe, a wild whitetail buck, let's say a buck that's your best buck on the ranch. In his lifetime, the research has shown he's only going to be responsible for 2 or 3 males that hit the ground.
Really?
Yes, sir. And they're not necessarily at the top of the gene pool for him, because every animal, you know, has a curve of the and from the middle to the left is the poor side of his gene, mm-hmm. And from the middle to the right is the better side of his gene, and it's only over there on the very tail end that you can get an animal like him, and the odds of that happening, it's a math problem. He's not flipping enough coins in his lifetime to make a difference. No single animal is. But you put him in a managed lands, deer permit, state permitted, state sanctioned breeding pen with up to 20 does. We like 15 better because it doesn't not so hard on the bucks.
When we started this, we would put 20, and
Okay.
then over the years, I think we first reduced it to 17. And then they've kind of done the math, and I think you
15.
don't really. We went to 15, but 15 to 17 doesn't really get you any more fawns than 20 for some reason.
That's right.
So
Well,
15 to 17 is kind of the sweet spot.
You know, when you overpopulate a space with animals, it creates stress for them, social stress, crowding stress, and even if they got all they can eat, it's hard on them, and so, you know. That's why we reduced the numbers down.
So, but I think we're kind of talking around without anybody really understanding what we're doing. So explain the DMP pen a little bit better, just to kind of explain what we did today, or I will.
Yeah, why don't you do it first?
So, you know, like he was saying, you know, you get that one buck that maybe in his lifetime he produces 3 or 4, if he's lucky, bucks, and maybe one of them's going to look like him. But, but like you said, the roll of the dice is pretty small. So we started, the state sanctioned DMP pen he's talking about is you fence off, it's got to be at least 5 acres. Ours are usually 7 to 9 acres, I think, right? 7 or 8 acres. And you catch one of the bucks on your ranch, or you can buy a buck from a licensed breeder and put him in there with 15 to 20 does. And so he'll stay in there. We'll catch them, like today's November the 16th, catch them today, and they'll live in there for the year. And then 30 days before we catch them again next year, we'll open the gates, and all the fawns and the buck and the does all walk out. And they're wild. They haven't even really ever seen people any more than a wild deer on the ranch would have. we'll go in there and fill protein feeders for them and make sure they've got water, but we don't handle them at all. And they're still very wild when they come out.
And so you look at how it's changed the math. So those pens are fenced off from coyotes, and my workers patrol them. They keep coyote digs fixed and whatnot. And so anyway, at the end of the day, we end up with close to 150% fawn crop
Out of those pens, yeah.
out of those 15 does.
Yeah.
But that's from a superior buck. That's not just any buck.
That's just that only buck's the only one that breeds
And
them.
we have 6 of them. So how many total fawns are we releasing from superior bucks into the wild every year?
Well,
75 to 90.
yeah,
If we don't,
Well-
if there's no twins,
yeah.
75 to 90.
Well, if there's 150% of 20 is what?
30.
30, so 30 times 5 is,
150.
And we've had 6.
we've had 6. This year we decided to rest one pen, but we don't really do 6 pens.
So we've been doing every year 180 fawns a year, of which you can expect the males to be roughly half. So that's 90 male fawns a year coming out of our DMP pens for most of the history of this ranch.
Well, then you get to a point where we're at now. We've been doing it for so long that a lot of the does that are going in there are fawns from one of these giant bucks that have been in there in years past.
That's right. So it's working on both the male side and the female side.
And it really has made a big difference when we started doing it. I know we hadn't really got into that much of the history of this ranch, but when we bought it, 130-inch deer was a big deer here.
Really?
And there weren't very many of them.
Oh, there were so many colors.
So many
I mean,
colors.
I mean, I'm big on color. I can't stand a whitetail rack that's white looking.
Yeah, you want the chocolate.
Yeah, I don't want to look like it's been laying out in the sunlight for 3 or 4 years, and yet it's on the deer's head when you kill him. I hate it. I mean, I shot a bunch of deer back then. They were little skulls, and I felt like I was making a difference.
Yeah,
and
you
I
were.
was.
You definitely were.
And but not since. But I want a chocolate horn, heavy horn, mainly typical, framey. Give me that.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
I'd say we caught some of them this weekend and put them in those pens with those deer. I mean, there are some phenomenal animals, wide, heavy, strong. I mean, just gorgeous deer.
But you noticed that nothing looked like a freak. They all
No.
looked like South Texas.
Yeah, I
deer.
mean, you
we'll
had-
get a little bit of trash.
Yeah, a couple
in 'em,
kickers
but-
here and there and little extras, but nothing like the 60-point,
Yeah.
deer that are out there.
Yeah.
And and the exciting thing for me is that our breeder bucks are coming from our own property.
Yes.
We're raising those breeder. We didn't buy those breeder bucks. We raised them.
Yeah.
And I've bought some breeder bucks in the past, but it's been years since
Yeah.
we've needed to. Well, why go spend the money when you got really better genetics, in my opinion, right here, which is that homegrown, typical look that I love so much. Heavy
We
horn.
caught yesterday a 3-year-old 7x7. It's just, I don't think you weren't here yet. I sent you a picture of him. But just 190-inch, 3-year-old, 14 points. Chocolate horns, just beautiful, beautiful.
That's
big,
it.
big deer. That's what the goal is,
Yeah, I think it stands as a testament what y'all have done to the place that, we captured 5 on average 200-inch deer.
Mm-hmm.
And even outside of that, the guys in the helicopter said, oh, we saw multiple 200-inch deer.
Yeah.
And so what kind of says, hey, I know you did a survey previously to this weekend where you kind of looked out there and tried to see what bucks are out there, what the ratios are, kind of doing a herd count. What makes you pick a buck? Is it that just, heavy horned, wide, 12 point? I mean, is there rhyme or reason to what we're doing this weekend, what bucks we're picking?
I mean, I guess in a perfect world, you'd want to go out and get your biggest ones, right?
Yep.
And I think in the past we've probably done that, but I think we've got to the point where we've got so many young 3 and 4 year olds that are really, really promising superstar bucks that I'd rather sell my older trophies that are a little bit bigger and go ahead and make some money on them. And then nobody's going to shoot these 3 and 4 year olds anyway. And I think that they do better. A 3 or 4 year old does better than a 7 or 8 year old deer in the pen anyway. They're definitely better at handling that many does and dealing with the stress and all that stuff. I mean, do you agree?
Yeah, but among those 3 and 4 year olds, we want to pick deer that I've been talking about it.
Yeah, that have the
niche,
characteristics.
that niche that we like, that Blair and I like, that we want to grow here on this ranch, which is a typical South Texas look, which is not full of trash. Maybe he's got mule deer forks or a little kicker here off the G2s. But I just don't want all that trash. I want as typical as clean as I can get it. And, one of the exciting things for me, Blair, is to see the way over the last 5 years. It's like most of our bucks are typical 12 points.
Yeah.
And now we're getting some typical 14s.
Yep.
We get some typical 8s. I saw a big 8 this morning at Wakamatsu that y'all need to kill.
There's a big one over there.
160.
I've seen him.
Yeah,
But it used to be all 8 points here. I mean, it was, you go out and a 10 point was a little special, and it was very rare to see a 12. But now it's getting pretty rare to find an 8. A slick 8 is.
I couldn't believe it. Of course, I didn't have my binoculars, so it could have been a 10.
There's a big 9 over there.
I was wondering.
Yeah, real heavy, tall 9 over there.
In your opinion, it's the breeding, the pens, and then the culling and the management, or is
And the
it
nutrition. Maybe number 1 is probably nutrition.
Yeah. I mean, Mickey says there's no ranch in South Texas that he is affiliated with that grows the food plots like we do.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up on a farm. My dad was a farmer. I wanted to be a farmer. The only reason I'm not one full time is my mother wouldn't let me, and so Daddy said, well, you make good grades, you ought to go be a doctor or a dentist or something like that, and then you can be a farmer on weekends. And so that's what I am. That's what I do.
Yeah, so we grow alfalfa and kind of the main crop we've been growing for the deer the last few years. He's experimented with just about everything you can think of over the years.
Yeah.
But we've got irrigation, which until this year we had.
Until this year.
We had, but the water's getting so low. But alfalfa here has worked really, really well for us. And we feed protein, cottonseed, and we just started feeding peanut hay this year, which has been great. So, that was one of the things about when we bought this place. He really wasn't planning on keeping it. But we've got access to the river and realized that we could irrigate food plots and lakes. Here's your coffee. And lakes with the river water. So that was one of the reasons that he decided to keep it. And it's we've been able to do such amazing things with the deer and the fish, largely because of that. But for whatever reason, it's not really raining anymore. We can't pump out of our river.
Yeah.
The river's almost dry.
But getting back to the lab thought, people ask me, why don't you plant lab? And the reason is because I have irrigation that allows me to plant alfalfa instead. And based on nutrient analysis, lab is superior to alfalfa. Not by a lot, but by enough to make it something to look at, especially if you're planting dry land. Because if you're planting dry land, you got to plant to moisture. And if you're putting a seed down through the dry surface to where the moisture is below, you're going to have to go a fair distance in dry land farming. And so you're going to have a big seed that has a lot of energy to push it on out of the ground. So that's where Lab came in at Tecomate. The reason I don't use Lab here is we don't have Roundup Ready Lab available like we do alfalfa. And Roundup Ready is a game changer, I mean, it reduces the amount of time you got to put steel in the ground to control your weeds and whatever. And so that's why I planted a field this past year. We have one soil type that's
One spot.
that's good soil for Lab. Lab doesn't like alkalinity off the charts, and these clay soils are really highly alkaline. They still grow okay, but one of our fields they grow great. That's where I'm planting it again this year.
So Blair, can you talk us through what we did this weekend? We've kind of hinted to it. We're going out there, we're capturing deer, target bucks, putting them into those breeding pens. We got the helicopter, we got the personnel. What is there a time of year that we typically do this, and kind of what's the thought process?
Yeah, so you do it. You do it right before the rut, which is November. So you don't want them bred because you want the bucks that you're putting them in the pen with to breed them, and they'll live out the rest of the year in that pen. They'll have their fawns in the pen, and we'll release them 11 months from today.
And they're released by simply opening the gates. We never touched those fawns.
Yeah, we never. The only thing that we did was when we picked the does up, So the helicopter shoots a net gun on them.
Yep.
You know, we'll tie them down, put them in the back of a Polaris, bring them to the pen. We'll give them a shot of Ivermec for ticks and fleas and parasites, and a anti-inflammatory an antibiotic drug. It's got both in it, and that's it. Very, very, very little. I mean, you saw very, very
Yep.
little handling of them, as little as possible.
And let me clarify this. I just realized it's probably confusing to people listening to this because they just heard me say we never touch them. And now
You never
we
touch the
touch
fawns.
them. We never touch the fawns
After
that are
they're
born.
Right.
We touch the deer that are captured,
Yep.
the adult does, and the bucks that we put in the pens to breed, to create the fawns, but their offspring we don't touch
Yeah.
until the next year if they happen to be caught because they're a full-grown doe now.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
buck, whatever.
And yeah, so that was it. I mean, you know, I love having people like you. I've got friends that come and come out and help us and have a good time. I mean, did you have a good time? Did you
It
enjoy
was a great weekend. It was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. It really,
Yeah.
it was awesome. I mean,
Dude, it's a wildlife rodeo.
it really
It
is.
really is.
I mean,
It's fun.
those guys are cowboys in the off season, and you know they're
Yeah.
running around, riding around. I mean, the pilots are spinning that.
Did you get some
helicopter.
footage of that helicopter?
I got a couple
pirouetting?
videos. We'll splice it in and whatnot. I got them flying. I got them netting. The first buck we got, I got it on camera. I got a couple of the does, and the second buck too.
Those cowboys are tough.
They
do some crazy stuff.
they're wild.
Yeah,
They're different breed.
They fly around here like a meteor on those 4x4s.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
You got to be careful when they're here.
I always tell them, like, I don't understand how you guys don't get hurt every week.
I know.
And they've been doing it for years, and most of them have never had an accident. I don't know how.
No, I mean they're going by 35, 45 on the road just as soon as they hear that call from the.
Well, and I mean, I've seen them drive into ditches, and
Yeah.
like they treat like those four. I don't know. It's a testament to the manufacturer of Honda four-wheelers, because those things are amazing that they're still running.
Gary, Blair, thank y'all for your time.
You bet,
We
man.
appreciate it. We'll cut some of the footage, talk through what's going on, and again, appreciate the opportunity, appreciate the kindness, appreciate y'all sitting down
You
and
bet,
talking
Rex.
through everything.
All right, man. Take care.
Appreciate it.
Go Cowboys.
Before we dive into the deer capture weekend, just wanted to note that interview with Gary and Blair was a little bit longer. It was cut down for YouTube, trying to keep it more related to the hunting at the ranch. But if you want to check out the full story behind it, behind the ranch, the bass program that they had, and everything else, I'm going to upload that episode separately. It's about 50 minutes, but if you want to hear all that background and the full story, feel free to check that out. With that being said, we'll dive into the action. So we started off Saturday morning. Pilot got that bird up in the air, and Armando and I took off following him. So Armando is a longtime friend of the ranch. He also guides out there, and I was paired up with him over the weekend. I was there to be his eyes and try to spot where the helicopter is and was going, and then he would, with his knowledge of the ranch, try to get us in that area. So Armando and I were playing the transportation roles on there, so we had the Cowboys there to get the nets off the deer, tie up the deer, and then Armando and I would transport them back to the breeding pens. The helicopter pilot had one gunner on there. They had a net gun on there, and what they would do is try to fly low to the brush after scouting an area, and if they saw an animal move out, like a doe or eventually a nilgai or a wildebeest, they would hover on that deer or animal and make sure that it's an animal that they want to capture. They would use the helicopter flying low to the ground as a way to move them out of the brush. If you've been in South Texas, you know that it's a thick brush and you can't really easily get back there. So they would use the helicopter to push them into open pastures or into the roads to where the gunner can then get the net on the animal, allowing the Cowboys to get in there and then Armando and I to transport them out. And so what we're going to go to next is the first buck capture of the weekend. This was a 206-inch deer, and the first deer that live deer that I've touched and had my hands on, and it was a wild experience.
He's the one that you know. It's crazy. I'm trying to explain it over here.
So right place, right time for Armando and I. We were the first non-Cowboys on the buck. So it was awesome to see a deer of that size up close and in person. By far the biggest deer I've ever seen. But since we were the first people on the buck, that meant someone needed to ride in there, and so I was going to get in the back of the deer. It was a little bit of a learning curve on that one. Never done it before, and so I'm trying to keep this very expensive animal safe, keep myself safe, not let him break loose, not let him kind of buck me off, because that deer did not sit still that ride, and also not jab me with his antlers. It was a pretty nerve-wracking experience, but it was an awesome experience, and we were able to get him back safely to the pens and score him out before releasing him out back into those pens for breeding purposes.
Beautiful. Good job, Mondo.
After that, we were back out chasing down the helicopter, found it along one of the corners of the ranch, moving deer around, just kind of in awe of how he was piloting that plane, and waiting for the next animal to capture.
Oh yeah, man, they're freaking crazy.
There's a guy right there.
I don't know if they after a dog or a new guy.
I feel like we should have tackled her.
Yeah, I think it's a... Yeah, right? You man, that was pretty good. Go for it. That was a good one.
Just want to give a shout out to Armando. He was a great guy. We had a really awesome weekend with him. But this was one of the deer that Blair mentioned in the video. This was the 14-point deer that we captured. This was the second deer of the weekend. Took a little bit of a different approach on this one, straddling him, which gave me a lot more control. And another deer, another great deer, released back into the wild.
He's gonna drop it.
On the way to the helicopter after that one, we've moved to a different part of the ranch. That's Jalisco Hill. But we ran across the wildebeest. We will be back with them on Sunday, where we ended up capturing a couple to transport to one of the neighboring ranches. Here you can see a full capture of a doe from the initial push to the net shot, and she tries to get up and keep running off, but one of the cowboys was able to get on top of her pretty quickly. The next clip is them tying her up. So you'd sit on the doe, get her back legs tucked up, get one of the front legs. The other cowboy would hold the other hoof so they don't get pawed, and they would, wrap her up. And from that point, we'd put her into the back of the Polaris and drive over. Typically try to take at least one or two over at a time, depending on how the capture process was going. I think this clip is pretty cool. We'll kind of let the full clip walk here. Armando could tell it was a buck from the way the helicopter pilot was working, and kind of shows the full capture on a buck process, as well as some of the immediate post-capture process. So obviously we see the buck run out, we're trying to chase after it. You always got to be careful around the roads. We also don't want to push the buck further than the helicopter pilot wants him to go. We want to make sure that he's in control. But as he moves away, we want to make sure that we're right there with him, moving in unison. As we see, that's one of the cowboys in the side-by-side. We are to the right of a food plot, and so we just want to make sure that we're tucked up with him, being careful for other cowboys coming by on four-wheelers. Not able to get it on camera, but that buck is running along the road right there. We're about to see him pop out again at the end of the road. Kind of hard to see, but he's out there still running. And the pilot gets the net on him, and so at this point we are trying to get on that deer as quick as possible. The cowboys all have radios on there, so they know that the net is down, and so we're just trying to stay out of their way. We got one more cowboy coming up, and then we're gonna go in there, follow them in there, and provide any help and support that we can.
I think he's on.
So another awesome buck. This is us loading up the buck in there. Trying to balance that, keeping him restrained while also keeping myself safe. Once again, going for the straddle method because it was a lot more comfortable for me.
Beautiful buck.
And this is that buck
That's
right
the one
before
I-
we released it back into the pens. On the way back, they actually captured another buck, which is this guy. Phenomenal basket, great brow tines. It's a little bit quick. Gary helping keeping up Wes's pants. But it was a fun weekend all around. Everybody had a good time. So we made pretty good progress on the capture weekend. We captured all 5 target bucks, and we captured a majority of the doe. I think we ended up getting 10 in each pen at the end of the day. And so afterwards, Armando asked me if I wanted to go sit in a blind, which the answer was, of course. It was awesome to get to see some of the quality of whitetail out there. Beyond the 3.5-year-olds that we captured, there's some great young deer out there, and able to get to see at least one full body mature deer out there. Great animal. We were looking for a deer they named Coma, which was the 250-inch deer that we talked about. Unfortunately, didn't get to see him. What we did see was a pretty good sized rattlesnake on the way home. We dispatched it, removed the head, and then I took home the rattle to bring home to my son. He found it pretty interesting, which is always fun getting him introduced to hunting and other stuff like that. Next morning, we were back at it. We were trying to capture some nilgai early in the morning, as well as the last few does before heading on to the wildebeest. It wasn't too long before we had the final doe, which this is the release of that doe, into the final breeding pen before moving on to the nilgai in wildebeest. Once again at Jalisco Hill, we were able to see some of the resident exotics. These are the blessed bucks.
We here, guys.
And then we were in the right place at the right time for the wildebeest. You can see the helicopter way in the background. They were actually on some other part of the wildebeest herd, capturing some of those, which eventually would run by us as well. Really impressive pilot work across the weekend. Props to the gunners who hung onto the side of the helicopter the whole weekend. Don't know if I could do that. But after some great shooting from the gunners with the nets, we wrapped up the weekend putting hands on the final wildebeest, moving them to the trailers, and into the neighboring ranch to release them there. Just want to say thanks again to Gary and Blair for having me out for the weekend. If you're interested in having a true South Texas experience, getting on some massive whitetails or even some exotics, make sure you check out La Perla Ranch. It is a first-class experience across the board. Great guides, great accommodations, great people, great experience. Highly recommend you check them out if you're in that market. But with that, we're going to wrap up today's episode. Appreciate everybody sticking around. Until the next one, stay safe and shoot straight.